Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the March 16th meeting of the United Neighborhood Council Planning and Zoning Committee, the second one of the month. We meet on the first and third Wednesdays, so welcome everybody. I'm John Arnold. I am the chairperson of the Planning and Zoning Committee, and with me is Laura. Would you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Laura Myers. I'm the co-chair of UNNC's Planning and Zoning Committee, live in Angeles Vista, and am currently serving also as the president and your Zoom host, although actually John's showing as the Zoom host tonight. And John, do you wish me to share the screen at some point?
I will in a second. No, I can do it. And we also have Steve Peckman. Steve, want to introduce yourself and your role this evening?
Sure. I'm Steve Peckman. I've been a resident of Jefferson Park for a long time. Not as long as John, but approaching
Close.
close. And I am the co-chair of the UNNC Planning and Zoning Committee Oil and Gas Subcommittee. Unfortunately, my co-chair, Chris Carlson, will not be able to make it this evening. So, but we will be talking about the Murphy drill site tonight.
Right, which is item number, ooh, is this correct? Which is gosh, this is not the wrong. Sorry, my agenda is not showing correct. Oh, because I have it on the governing board. Sorry. Hold on. Clicked the wrong thing. Okay, so so welcome everybody. I'm going to share my screen with the agenda. We only have a few items, but they will probably fill up our time. So the first item we have, can everyone see my
Yes.
agenda, please? Thank you. The first item we have is item number 1, and it is just informational. We don't have to vote on it. It's just we are continuing to vote to meet virtually. We have to announce it now because the state mandate to be able to vote to meet virtually expired back in October. So we basically have to renew that authority every single month. So we are continuing that as the COVID state crisis continues, though hopefully abating for good, though we'll never know. And then we don't know what will happen in the future as far as meeting virtually, but that's not for us to, or meeting in person, not for us to just discuss tonight. So the first, that's item number 1. Item number 2 is welcome and call to order. I already introduced myself. I'm John Arnold, the chairperson of this committee. And we sometimes go around the room with anyone who wants to raise their hand and introduce themselves and let everyone know who they are. Teresa?
Thank you, John. Hi, everybody. My name is Teresa Masonette, and I represent the West Adams Avenues on the UNNC board.
Great, thanks, Teresa. Anyone else like to unmute and introduce?
Donna Jones from West Adams Avenues. Are we going to have opportunities to share things? I'd love to share something.
Yes, we will on the next item. Thank you. Richard?
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Richard Parks. I'm a longtime West Adams resident.
Eric?
Hi, I'm Eric Barlow. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for STEM Prep Schools, and we operate 3 schools in the community, including 2 in the UNNC boundaries. So glad to be here.
Great, thanks, Eric. Thanks for coming. Lizzie?
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Lizzie Moramisato. I am chair of the Outreach Committee for the UNNC and also the area rep for Jefferson Park, east of Arlington. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Lizzie. Anyone else? Okay, moving on. For the end of item number 2 is the approval of the agenda. If everyone can read the agenda, we have public comment. Item number 3, item number 4 is discussion of the Murphy oil site, which has been ongoing. And 5 is an outreach idea that the committee chairs have. And the final is the update on previous cases. We have a specific one to update you on. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
I move to approve the agenda.
Steve, can I have a second?
I second.
Thank you. Okay, so everyone in favor, please raise your hand either virtually on camera. Is there anyone up? I see some enough hands up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Anyone opposed? Please raise your hand. None opposed. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item number 3, public comments. Donna, public comment, 1 to 2 minutes per speaker, please.
Wanted to mention that at our meeting, Mary Jones, a deputy from CD10, mentioned there will be a program of proactive code enforcement beginning, I think, in the next week or two. And it will be focusing on properties, residential properties that need help. It's not about writing citations. It's about getting people support in program form to get painting and other things on their homes done. Free from what I'm gathering. So that is PACE in the 10. And it won't be about commercial, I believe. It's going to be about residential properties.
Donna, can you post any information you have on that if anyone wants to follow up into the chat, please? Even if it's just the name of the event.
I will put her name and phone number
Excellent, thank you.
and the idea about PACE.
Excellent, thank you. Anyone else have, Lizzie, is your hand still up to make a comment?
No, sorry.
Anyone else want to make a public comment of anything that's not on the agenda this evening? Laura?
I actually, I just want, since we have so many people at this meeting and many of you are new, we do have an open chat room where you can chat to everyone. However, the purpose of the chat is not to actually have conversations. It is to, for example, if you're having trouble raising your hand but want to speak, you can put that in the chat. Put in information like John just asked Donna to do. We save the chat and it becomes part of the public record. So, so best not to have some back and forth, and noting as well that the hosts are not reading. If you have an actual comment to make, please raise your hand to make the comment in public, because not everyone is gonna read what you wrote anyway. So that's the purpose of the chat tonight.
Thanks, Laura. Any other public comment? Anything not agendized today? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to move on to item number 4, and we're going to hand over the chairpersonship to Steve Peckman, who is the, as he mentioned, is the chair of the subcommittee for oil drilling issues in the neighborhood. So Steve, I'm going to hand it over to you and manage this case.
Thank you, John. So as many of you know, this is a item that we've been talking about at the Planning and Zoning Committee for quite a number of years. And the most recent item, I guess I need to read this, is case number ZA 15227 PA4 and PA6, which is plan approval, review of conditions and compliance for 2126 West Adams Boulevard, which is the Murphy Oil drill site, and the operator is ENB Resources. And if I saw him, I think Ted Cordova is here today representing ENB. So I just want to make a couple brief introductory comments, and then Ted, I'll pass it over to you. If you could, then I'll give you 10 minutes to present, and then we'll have some Q&A. So ENB is asking for the support of the United Neighborhoods Neighborhood Council to send a letter, hopefully, to the zoning administrator in preparation for a hearing in April. Whatever determinations we make tonight will be forwarded as a recommendation to the UNNC governing board. This committee does not make decisions. So whatever we discuss tonight will be promoted up to the governing board. And this is all about the zoning administrator's review of the conditions for operating at the site and the company's compliance with the rules and regulations for the site. And I'll just add, there have been a number of claims made against ENB by by members of the community, and we'll have an opportunity to talk about those as well.
What books?
So I want to summarize, and I know Ted's going to cover this, but I just want to summarize the 3 points that in this hearing with the zoning administrator, ENB Resources is going to ask for additional conditions to be placed on the operations at the site. These conditions are important because they become part of the record and the approval for operating at the site. And so should ENB decide to leave the site at some day, which we hope they don't, but if they decide to leave someday and there's a new operator, that new operator will be bound by these conditions as well. And I'm just going to summarize them. I'm sure Ted will talk about them more. The first one is on-site annual inspections by the city petroleum administrator and other agencies that the city deems necessary and appropriate. And these would be on-site, not what they call desk inspections where paperwork is shuffled back and forth. Someone actually has to physically go to the site. So that would be a condition. Another is air monitoring, where ENB is asking the zoning administrator to require as an operating condition to install and begin fence line emissions monitoring to continuously monitor and record data of quantities of specified pollutants that will be outlined. The third is supplemental emergency reporting, which requires ENB to immediately notify appropriate agencies of any emergency or spill that requires reporting. Okay, so these are the 3 conditions that ENB is asking to be part of the conditions of approval for operation at the site. Now, there's a 4th issue that I believe ENB is going to ask for consideration, which is for the zoning administrator to review previous conditions and to identify the appropriateness of having gas burning microturbines that were installed by a previous operator to use on the site. So that's kind of the general outline of where we're headed today. We'll have lots of opportunity for everyone to talk, but before we do that, I would like to turn it over to Ted Cordova, who's the representative of ENB Resources, and Ted will give you 10 minutes.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Chair Arnold and Co-Chair Myers. Appreciate the opportunity. And Steve, that was a great summary of the application. So really appreciate it. And thank you for the invitation to be with you all tonight to discuss the status of our company's application into the planning department of the city of Los Angeles. We appreciate the continued opportunity to work together. We've gotten great feedback, and people have asked great questions, and we've been responsive and keep them coming. We appreciate it. So like Steve mentioned, my name is Ted Cordova. I serve as a vice president for ENB Natural Resources. We are, for those that aren't familiar with us, we are a California-based energy company with assets throughout California, Wyoming, Kansas, and Louisiana. Our asset portfolio includes oil, natural gas, and some solar. We recently launched 2 solar projects in California, one 23 megawatt project, pretty large one in Kern County, and we have another one in Santa Barbara County. But here in the city of Los Angeles, we have several sites we operate, but the one we are focused on tonight is the Murphy site located at 2126 West Adams Boulevard that you're all familiar with. Specifically, as Steve mentioned, we are focused on the zoning administrator's review of the city's conditions on our site under the name PA4 conditions, plus a comprehensive review of the site's compliance record. And just as background, this all came about and we received a letter in June 2021. We received communication from the planning department requesting we file a plan application approval. The following month, in July of 2021, we submitted our plan application approval to initiate the zoning administrator's review. As part of the package, we presented 3 very large binders of data, one that went to the planning department and the zoning administrator, one to the council district 10, and one for the UNNC. And we also provided additional copies as a courtesy to the Office of Petroleum Administration in the city of Los Angeles. In December 2021, the ZA had additional questions in which we provided a response in January the following month, which was 2022. And we included our response in the January 19, 2022 presentation to this committee. We had our first UNNC Planning and Zoning Committee hearing on this application October 6, 2021. We had a second meeting on January 19, 2022, where we gave a visual presentation and a follow-up hearing with the Planning and Zoning Committee on February 16th. Between that time and now, the zoning administrator has set a date for a public hearing on our application. The date is April 28, 2022. So that brings us up to date on where the status is with the city. We are asking the board, as Steve mentioned, to support our application, which has been submitted to the local neighborhood council. And the purpose of the application is for the ZA to review our compliance and the conditions that regulate the site. So just want to reiterate a couple things that we did in our application that Steve touched on, and want to make sure I read it as we presented it into the application. So as part of the review of condition process, EMB has proposed the following good neighbor provisions for the ZA's consideration and determination. One is annual inspections. So EMB proposes a condition requiring the drill site and operations be inspected annually by the petroleum administrator, in concert with such other city agencies as the petroleum administrator and/or city deems necessary in order to evaluate compliance with city code conditions assigned in ZA approvals and city permits. The second one, the supplemental emergency reporting, EMB proposes a condition that requires it to immediately notify appropriate city agencies and entities, including the Los Angeles Fire Department, the petroleum administrator, and the local city council office, CD10, of any emergency or accident or spill that requires reporting to any state, county, or regional agencies that we're already required to do. So this is going above and beyond what regulatory and legal framework is for reporting. The third one is air monitoring. EMB proposes a condition requiring it to install and begin operating a fence line emissions monitoring system using commercially available equipment that provides continuous monitoring and data recording of quantities of specified pollutants in a manner to be approved by the petroleum administrator of the city of Los Angeles. It should be noted that we are actually already volunteered to move forward with that. And we're already have begun implementation. But we, as Steve mentioned, it is important to formalize these types of conditions with the city, so that he is right. If we were to sell the asset in another operator, they would be bound by these types of conditions.
Hang on, Ted. Would everyone please ensure that their mic is muted until you're called on? Thank you. Sorry, Ted.
Oh, no problem at all. Okay. So, so those are the three conditions, and then whether the additional procedures contemplated above take the form of conditions imposed by the ZA, or whether they are developed in collaboration with the city or other agencies thereafter, EMB agrees in principle to their inclusion as part of our good neighbor provisions package. And all these proposed conditions, as ultimately will be articulated by the city, they must be reasonable and economically and technologically feasible. Additionally, the conditions may be replaced by any regulations adopted by the city. So that's, the city is already has, and the reason why we say that is because the city has made a motion to develop an annual inspection protocol citywide for all their sites in the city. And so we're not saying that this condition would supersede anything that the city does. If the city wants to develop its own citywide annual inspection program, which we think that they should, and we've been supportive of, then that would supersede any annual inspection type inspection. So a little bit about our compliance. So just a couple of highlights. Oil production sites in California operate under the strictest environmental regulations with multiple inspections per year already. So inspections aren't anything new, but it would for most agencies. But for the city of Los Angeles, for the actual petroleum administrator, what Steve mentioned is they're doing some sort of desktop inspection right now, but this would actually be an on-site and be a little bit more comprehensive. For example, we've had multiple inspections by multiple agencies on a regular basis. In 2021, just to give you an idea, the site had 13 inspections, including Los Angeles County Fire Department, Los Angeles City Fire Department, the state regulatory agency, CalGEM, South Coast Air Quality Management District, and Cal OSHA. We're in good standing with the regulatory agencies. We had very positive results on our 2021 annual inspection conducted by the state agency CalGEM. No issues or concerns were identified. We've had several South Coast Air Quality Management District inspections that were positive. We had one identified corrective action that was fixed and cleared by the agency. Look, if we have an issue with an agency, if anything comes up, we're going to fix it. We're going to take care of it and get it cleared by the agency. We passed the LA Fire Department Reg 4 inspection, and we sent in updated paperwork and as requested by the Cooper Division within LA Fire. These inspections are good things. There are opportunities for a business to be able to have ongoing dialogue and conversations with inspectors, be able to work things out, and be able to keep their business in compliance. The site had no reportable spills, 0 emergency events, no alarm events from our air monitors. So we're strong believers in working with our regulatory agencies, and we're even going the extra mile to ask the city to take an additional step within their annual inspection on the site. Thank you for your time and consideration. And as always, thank you for the opportunity to work together. And Steve, I'll pass it back to you. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Ted. I know that before this meeting, we received some claims from the community about concerns regarding the site, and those were provided to you. I wonder if you could take just a couple minutes to address those claims.
Sure. So some additional information requested from UNNC dated February 24th. So EMB Natural Resources operates under the strictest regulations, and we believe in working with our regulatory agencies. As I mentioned, we've even supported additional inspections by way of support of the city's motion to adopt a citywide annual inspection program. There was a claim that we were denying entry for inspectors, and I definitely want to make it clear that it's our company policy at the Murphy site to allow any agency representative to inspect the site. As I mentioned, in 2021, the site had been inspected 13 times. We didn't deny anybody entry, but there was an incident right when we took over. As for background, EMB took over the site as a new operator in October of 2019. On December 9th, 2019, a South Coast Air Quality Management District inspector approached the Murphy site, and the new operator asked the inspector to wait until a supervisor was called. The notes from the inspector were pretty clear that it outlined that the inspector, having found any odor at the fence line, decided to leave. EMB supervisors called the inspector within that hour and apologized for the delay and explained that the new on-site operators are being instructed to let inspectors in and do not have to wait for any supervisor. The supervisor continued to cooperate in the conversation with the inspector and provide the information. Definitely wouldn't characterize the incident as denial of entry. Like I said, in fact, we've had 13 inspections during 2021 and with multiple agencies, and not one was denied entry. And furthermore, we're adding more inspections by asking the city petroleum administrator to administer one for the city. Another point, the Murphy site has an excellent record of compliance and is good standing with regulatory agencies. We referenced our presentation that EMB gave to the local UNNC Planning and Zoning Committee on Wednesday, February 16th. as well as all of our compliance records that we've given to the city in our July 2021 via our plan approval application, which has also been given to Council District 10 and to the Los Angeles City Petroleum Administrator. Our company protocol is to fix any issues. We did have on one inspection, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, we had a corrective action by South Coast Air Quality Management District in December of 2021. We fixed it. It was a component leak. And we've also had two component leaks identified in December of 2019. So those are all fixed, and we've provided evidence that we're in good standing with South Coast Air Quality Management District, and those have all been taken care of. And then there was some question around, about our staff and how our shifts work and how all that works. And staff is dedicated to maintaining safe compliance and optimal performance of site. At the Murphy site, there are typically one or more personnel at the site to oversee the day-to-day operations. We have 2 shifts, a day shift and a night shift, each 12 hours per shift. The duties and responsibilities of a lease operator, day or night, include daily inspections of the operations, wells, equipment, and the facility. They're well trained in monitoring and maintaining equipment, compliance, safety, and our company's protocol includes multiple daily reporting responsibilities. So it's important to note that while we have a lease operator working over the course of any given 24-hour period, it's not a legal requirement, regulatory requirement, nor a condition of our lease to have 24-hour on-site coverage. We explained that to the LAFD CUPA inspector that we do have 24-hour personnel coverage as written in our SBPC plan. And then after that explanation, the conversation notated corrected on site. The inspector also notated there is no requirement in statute to require 24-hour personnel coverage, and as stated in the facility's SBCC section 2.17, which covers security. So Steve, I'll send it back to you. If there's any information I can provide, let me know.
Thank you very much, Ted. At this point, I'll open it up to any questions or comments from attendees. I see the hand of Laura Myers.
Yeah, right. I'm going to make a kind of a co-chair comment as opposed to a question of the operator. So we've been talking a lot of technical things, but specifically, and it was on the agenda as such, what we're dealing with, what UNNC has been asked to deal with as a land use case is the land use case. So we're not at this meeting, nor at the governing board, nor at the public hearing. We're not actually allowed to, as a neighborhood council, not allowed to speak about is oil drilling good or bad? Should it be in urban areas? How far should it be from homes? It's not this topic, although the city council has started moves to deal with those questions and give answers, right? But what we're asked to be looking at tonight, and then at governing board, and then at the public, is one, are the conditions that have already been imposed good enough, or do they need to have more of them? Two, is the operation in compliance with those conditions? And we have been asked, that would be the zoning administrator side. Three, we've been asked by ENB to support the additional conditions that they are asking for, including a review by the zoning administrator as to whether or not it's been approved. I know I have bad sound feedback from my computer, Audrey. You were late. I will tell you, we are having a major electrical issue here, and the computer crashed 3 times as a result.
Laura, if you could just finish with your comments,
Yeah,
that way we don't
that.
have to hear as much feedback. That would be great.
That'd be fine. So we've been asked to support them in their request for conditions, which includes asking the zoning administrator to evaluate prior conditions as to whether or not an gas burning micro turbines are allowed. I will go mute now.
Thank you, Laura. I appreciate it. The next question is from Elfman Modine. I hope I pronounced your name right.
Yeah, it's me and my wife's last name. Thank you, Steve. I have lived in the area for almost a decade now, but I have not been on a UNNC meeting since ENB took over the Murphy drill site. I live almost immediately below it. I am very happy to hear that they're asking these various municipal bodies to impose what I would call more vigorous monitoring. I have to ask the question though, why are they proactively seeking additional monitoring? I'm not skeptical per se, I'm curious though.
Ted, would you like to respond?
Yes, Alfmeen, this is Ted Cordova from ENB Natural Resources. Thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for engaging with us and asking your question. It's a great question. So we have other sites in this in the city of Los Angeles, and back in 2016 or 17 at the Rancho, one of our sites is the Rancho Park site. We got engaged with organized a community working group with the council member and some folks from the local neighborhood council and some other community leaders. And we were going through something very similar process with on that site. And we worked on these conditions together. So it was a collaborative effort. It was something that the community wanted, the council member wanted, and we worked on it together. And so we went through this process with the zoning administrator with these specific conditions. And when we took over as operator for the Murphy site in our due diligence phase, one of the things we did was we got around and talked to different community folks. Obviously, we didn't get around to everybody, but we had several conversations in the community, and some of them were familiar with the community engagement and efforts that we had at the Rancho site, and said, you know, we're really pleased to hear what you did over there with your Rancho site, working with the group, and we want to know, you know, do you think those are good conditions to bring over to the Murphy site, and would you do that? And we said yes, we'd be happy to do that. We do think they're good conditions. They're you know, they're good best practices, and you know, although they're not required by law or regulatory at this time, we'd be happy to volunteer to move them forward in our next opportunity with the zoning administrator. So this is our first opportunity with the zoning administrator to bring them forth, and we're happy to do that. We think they're smart, and we think they're good.
Thank you, Ted. I'll just, as a point of context, consistency has been something that our community has been asking for a long time, and for increased monitoring at the site before ENB ever took over the site has been something our community has been requesting. So the additions of these three conditions actually are consistent with the types of things we've been asking for quite a number of years. Richard, you have your hand up. Would you like to speak?
Thank you, Steve. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So I think at the very outset here, I wanted to point out that I appreciate your summary and introduction, Steve. I think you did a good job summarizing what ENB has come to the neighborhood council to request. But there is another part of this that I think is really important to make public too. And that is that residents who live around this oil drill site have also come to UNNC with a very specific request. And that is that the conditions that ENB is operating under are both long-standing and long overdue for modernization. And there are vital health and safety protections that were extended to wealthier West LA neighborhoods decades ago that have never been given to our neighborhood. And so we came to UNNC to ask for a recommendation from this committee to the governing board for three things, three protections that exist in other neighborhoods. One is an enclosure of the drill site. Two, a requirement that ENB use electric workover rigs instead of diesel. And three, a prohibition on the burning of gas in the neighborhood. These are protections that were given to wealthier, whiter West LA neighborhoods decades ago. That also is before us tonight. And I think many of us hope that this committee will advance a motion, a recommendation to the governing board to support really what is fair for our community. I also want to address, Steve, I was the one who, as you know, shared the more recent violations at the meeting and forwarded to you some just documents substantiating those violations. I wanted to circle back and just kind of flesh out a little bit some of what Mr. Cordova shared earlier. Indeed, as he acknowledged, ENB did deny entry to an AQMD inspector when AQMD returned a week later to do a follow-up inspection. They in fact found additional leaks greater than 50,000 parts per million. That's the level at which methane becomes explosive. Secondly, we had mentioned to you that in the November inspection in November 2021, AQMD had cited ENB for a leak of greater than 50,000 parts per million. The inspector notes, which I shared with you, showed in fact that leak was greater than 100,000 parts per million, twice the explosive level for methane gas. And third, you'll recall that back in October, Mr. Cordova was here with his senior vice president and insisted to this committee that the Murphy drill site was covered 24/7. On January 5th, LAFD Coupa issued a notice of violation to ENB for leaving the drill site unattended. Now, Mr. Cordova said something that was true here, but it was just part of the truth. He said that there is no requirement for ENB to have a personnel presence on the drill site 24/7. That's true. In the code, there's no requirement for that. However, in ENB's spill prevention control and countermeasure plan, ENB had asserted to regulators, to the city, and to residents that they maintained a 24/7 presence. And for that reason, when they admitted to violating that, they received this notice of violation, which I had also forwarded to you, Steve. So I just want to, I think in the interest of balance here, I think we need to have kind of a full accounting of what's going on. Secondly, we have many folks here who maybe are here for the first time tonight. There's a lot of names I don't recognize. And so I think what's important to recognize is that, Ted's really good at sharing part of the truth, but there's a fuller explanation of what's going on. And I'd like to just kind of tick off quickly some of the violations that ENB has accrued over the last year. So on January 5th, there were 5 21,000-gallon tanks that were degassed in the neighborhood. And that resulted in 2 notices of violation. One, because those pieces of equipment were not allowed to be used within 1,000 feet of a school, but E&B allowed them onto the drill site. And secondly, because the operator lied to the AQMD about the proximity of the nearest sensitive receptor, saying it was a half-mile away instead of 40 feet. The AQMD determined that there were 3 schools 870 feet from the drill site. Those 3 schools served 1,400 students. On March 15th and 25th, residents photographed workers being sprayed with oil. These ended up resulting in further Cal OSHA violations and citations, which I'll come back to in just a moment. On March 18th, E&B hired a company to deploy radioactive isotopes for well testing. The California Highway Patrol later determined that that truck had not been legal for roadway use in more than 12 years. And yet E&B had brought it to and from the drill site with radioactive isotopes repeatedly. On April 13th, this isn't a violation, but E&B installed a high pressure gas main. E&B has become an importer of gas rather than an exporter. And that's because they've installed turbines to start burning gas to generate electricity to power the facility. Now, those new exhaust stacks have blackened the air we breathe, and they've blackened the walls of the building where they're installed. Drill sites in West LA, they don't burn gas to generate power. They use a utility connection because that diminishes the pollution burden on nearby residents. On May 27th, E&B conducted an illegal acid job, an acid maintenance job. And they did it again 2 weeks ago. LA Municipal Code requires that whenever you perform maintenance, you have to get a determination of conditions. E&B, they've notified the city that they're going to do these activities, but they don't get a determination of conditions. So 2 weeks ago, tens of thousands of gallons of toxic acid were brought onto the drill site, and residents were given no warning. Cal OSHA opened up an investigation because residents had documented numerous violations, numerous instances where it appeared that worker safety was being endangered. And in fact, Cal OSHA issued 4 notices of violation for 9 violations, and they fined E&B over $12,000. They also gave E&B some pretty stern warnings that if some of the activities they saw were ever done again, they would, I forget what their word is, but it's kind of like they would be seen as volitional violations. I mentioned already in South Coast, they issued an NOV for leaks. This site has a long history of leaks and a long history of notices of violation for these leaks. So, I think what we recognize, Steve, is that inspections haven't prevented these notices of violation, and increasing the amount of inspection isn't going to change the situation. What we need additional protections that are health and safety protective. And those 3 things are to enclose the drill site, require the use of electric workover rigs, not diesel like E&B currently uses, and prohibit the burning of methane gas in our neighborhood. These are conditions, these are recommendations that will improve health outcomes for our community. Last year, USC did a study where they looked at nearly 1,000 residents living within 1,000 meters of the Murphy drill site. And they found a substantial and permanent reduction in lung health, lung capacity, and lung function for residents living within 1,000 meters on the downwind side of the drill site. That is completely unacceptable. We're not going to trade public health for E&B's corporate wealth. So we need some new protections. It's long overdue. We need to modernize this facility.
Thank you, Richard. That was important. So Ted, there are a number of issues here that Richard outlined. I think at the end of this, we're going to have a few motions to address the currently imposed conditions, the additional conditions that you're requesting, and other conditions that the community thinks should be put on the site. And I think we can get to all that, but in the interest of fair play, if you'd like to respond to the things that Richard outlined, I think that would be helpful for us to hear. Go ahead.
Sure.
And if you could respond to the specific claims, we heard about the concepts that ENB tries to live up to, but if you could kind of specifically address the concerns, that would be helpful.
Sure. Do you want me to comment on, I mean, which one? Can you go through?
Well, okay, so I'm sure Richard could correct me. So we'll get to the additional conditions, which are the 3 points that Richard made, but there are a number of claims about activities at the site. One is the denial of the inspector to come on site. When the inspector, we heard about your response to that already, but when the inspector returned a week later, found a leak, and the leak was greater than 100,000 parts per million, I think is what Richard said, 2 times the number of exploding methane.
In December 2019, it was greater than 50,000 parts per million. In December 2021, it was greater than 100,000 parts per million.
Okay, sure. So yeah, so let me address that. So, and it's a good question, and just give you some background on how these inspections work with South Coast Air Quality Management District. And as I said before, we are in great standing with the agency, and our company policy is to fix any issues that come up in these inspections, and many of them are pretty minor and can be fixed on site while the inspection is there. Some of them may happen a couple days later, but most of them get cleared pretty quickly by the inspectors. So again, our company protocol is to fix any issues identified and return to compliance as quickly as possible. But again, amongst the many inspections that we've had, the results have been very positive. And we do acknowledge that we had a component leak identified in December of 2019, as Richard pointed out, and in November 2021 by South Coast Air Quality Management District, as Richard pointed out. So both issues were immediately fixed and were cleared by the agency, and we returned to compliance as evidenced by the inspector, and that's in their report. These minor fixes can often be completed the same day or sometimes done with the inspector while they are on site. So, but any leak measurement, just as background, would be observed by an inspector when the probe is put right up to the leak source. And the probe will read close to 0 ppm when more than 2 to 3 feet away from a source point. So it is inaccurate to say that the Murphy facility was a potential hazard because of a pinhole leak from a pipeline component. And we have multiple safeguards and redundancies on site. The Murphy facility has a methane gas detection system that is required to be tested annually to comply with Los Angeles Fire Department Reg 4. And as I mentioned, we've passed our Reg 4 inspection. The system includes 19 sensors located throughout the site. Alarms would go off at a very low threshold level for safety measurements. We've never had the alarm triggered, and there's never been an emergency event at the site. ENB has the system tested quarterly to go above and beyond LAFD requirements. The system is designed to pick up on any potential hazards, which a component leak is not. So,
so Ted, Richard is saying that you had a leak of 50,000 and 100,000. What's the threshold to pick up a leak of your sensors?
I'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay. And do you have an idea of, so the implication, what I'm hearing from you is that the threshold of 50 and 100K is too low for your sensors to pick up. Did I hear that correctly?
No, that's, I don't think that's what I said.
Okay. So then did they pick them up the leaks? And if they did, how long did it take between identification by the sensor and actually addressing it?
So what I'm saying about our methane gas detection system is that it didn't pick up the leak because the probe, once you move it away, it's going to read 0. So in other words, it's not a threat.
So you have a pipe leaking, but the sensors don't detect it because you consider that after a certain number of feet, the gas dissipates and is no longer a threat. Is that what you're saying?
Well, let's see, I need to go back in my notes and look which one is which, but one of them was a catch basin. So it's not a pipeline leak.
Mhm. I thought you had referred to a pipe leak. I'm sorry.
Let me see. No,
That you talked about a pinhole leak.
yeah, no, it's a component leak. It's a, let me look back at my notes.
There are other items on the
It's a
agenda.
pipeline component. Sorry, it's not a pipeline leak. It's a
So
pipeline.
for those of us that don't work in the oil and gas industry, what's a pipeline component?
So it could be like a valve or like a little screw or something, or a flange. In this particular case, I'm not sure exactly what it was, but it's not a pipeline. It's a component of the pipeline.
Got it. And how did you find out about the leak?
South Coast Air Quality Management District, they have a probe that goes around and they're checking thousands of different components and your whole facility and equipment. And
So they were just there on a regular inspection and they identified the leak both times?
correct.
So okay, great. So the next item is the 24/7 coverage, which I understand is part of your own SOP and not part of a regulatory framework. But the SOP can be considered part of a regulatory framework, right? Because it's what you're saying you're going to do to protect the site and ensure safety not only on the site, but the surrounding area.
Yeah.
So does E&B still maintain that 24/7 presence is necessary, or has that been taken out of your SOP?
So what was originally in the plan was 24-hour personnel coverage, which we still have. But it wasn't, we didn't say we have 24-hour on-site personnel coverage. So someone technically could go off, grab a burger for dinner or something, come back, or, go to another site, then come back. But we have, it's not 24-hour on-site personnel coverage. That wasn't written in the plan. And so
Do any of your other sites have 24/7 personnel coverage?
yes, we do.
Meaning on-site, not that there's someone always there?
No, they're just the same, 24-hour
Same.
personnel coverage. Yeah.
Okay, Richard?
Steve, I just wanted to quickly clarify. E&B's spill prevention control and countermeasure plan states that they have 24/7 coverage. And what I have heard in the last 2 weeks from LAFD Coupa, which is the agency that gave E&B a citation, issued the notice of violation to E&B for leaving the drill site unattended, was that E&B has decided to remove the 24/7 piece. They're going to revise their spill prevention control and countermeasure plan to remove the 24/7 component so that their staff can leave the drill site and they won't incur future violations.
Okay. It's good not to violate your own SOP, that's for sure.
Maybe not good to leave the drill site unattended though.
Well, yeah, I guess that's a matter of debate because there's no regulatory framework requiring it. And certainly, for example, gas stations are left unattended and other places that deal with oil and gas. So I think that's something that people certainly could disagree on, but I think the focus here is whether anyone believes that that's necessary or not would be an issue that may be considered as a condition.
I mean,
Go ahead.
yeah, so during our due diligence phase, the site never had 24-hour on-site personnel coverage, to the best of our knowledge. And, you know, anyone let me know if we're wrong. I'm happy to hear that. But from our understanding is that when we looked at it, we believe that the Murphy site could benefit from 2 shifts, which gives the site additional oversight. And we made that decision to implement that greater shift schedule. So again, 112 for we call a day shift, an additional 12 hours, which gives you 24-hour for a night shift. You know, we thought that was a good thing. And so we have similar working coverage at 2 other sites in Los Angeles that are of similar size and operation. Now, some of our other sites that are smaller, we don't have that. And in addition to those 2 sites, the Murphy site, the site does have multiple redundancies and safeguards in place, such as fence line air monitoring with alarm protocols, multiple alarm systems for the site and equipment. We have a 24-hour answering service and well-regulated and improved safety and emergency response plans. So we believe we've gone above and beyond what's required of us.
Okay. Thank you. John, I know there are other agenda items. How much more time should we have for this? Because there are a number of issues here.
So I would say this is the key issue for the evening. I think the other 2 issues would probably be 20 minutes combined, 25 minutes combined. So I'd say
Okay.
take more time if that's what you feel is the community's.
I think it would be helpful to go through some of the other points that have been raised.
We have the highest turnout that I've seen in a number of years. So
Okay.
I think, I believe that they're here for this. So I think it's give this due course.
Great.
Yeah, and Laura, this is Laura jumping in. I had seen people putting up their hands and then dropping their hands, but I would like to, I know we need to go through all the things Richard brought up, but I think it'd be also proper at this time if anybody to at least ask if anyone's sort of sitting here frustrated, not able to ask their questions.
I'm sorry.
Question.
I didn't see any hands, so I'm sorry. And please, Teresa, if you have a question, leave your hand up until I call on you, please. Thank you. Teresa?
Thank you, Steve. Recently, the UNNC reactivated our public safety emergency preparedness plan. And I would like to get some clarification from Ted on the earthquake plan that they have at the drill site, and at what magnitude will the entire site be closed? If it's a 6.0 or 7.0, and if you could go into some detail about that. Thank you.
Yeah, Teresa, thanks for that question. Is that something that I would love to get back to you on, and if I can do that, that would be great.
Okay, thank you.
So we've covered a couple of the points that Richard raised. Does anyone else have any questions at this point? Please feel free. Remember, there are no bad questions. The bad question is that one that's never asked. Okay, I'm going to move on to the list as I got it, Richard, and you please feel free to jump in and add here. So the next one was the 2 notices of violation. I'm not sure I totally understood this one, about a container that was off-gassing on the site.
Yeah, I could jump in on that one.
Okay.
And so this is, and Richard, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is the one where Crimson is the pipeline owner, and I think that's this. I think he's referring to that where. So the pipeline owners in the city of Los Angeles have a whole regulatory framework, inspections, protocols, et cetera. And so when they don't have, this is a project that they had to do where they were, I think, cleaning their, I'll have to go back and look, but I think this was their project where they were cleaning their pipeline. They have to utilize a starting point and an end point for this regulatory inspection that they're required to do. And so they don't even have to give us notice at all. It's not our project. It's not our pipeline. It's not our regulatory requirement. We have no say in this at all.
Okay.
They don't have to give us any warning.
Okay. So when you're talking about the pipeline, is it a pipeline that's actually on the drill site property, or is it somewhere else?
Well, it's connected to the site, but
Right. So there's a pipe that runs under Adams, right?
yeah,
Is that the pipeline you're talking about?
yeah. So
And so when
and I'll
this
have to.
when this other company comes to do whatever they need to do they
Yeah,
access the drill site to do it?
they have to. Yeah,
Okay, so your company lets them in and then they do what they need to do for their pipe?
exactly.
Okay, and
So
what
we're-
role does E&B play in that when the company is there?
Nothing. We're required to let them in. It's not our permit. It's not our regulatory framework. It's not our inspection. And this is a great example where so the company that got the notice of violation, and Richard, if you could provide UNNC with the documentation, that would be great. It says Evoqua. So it's not, the notice of violation wasn't to E&B, it was to a vendor of Crimson Resources for this specific regulatory framework. And I know, Richard, you've gotten many things mischaracterized and wrong, especially saying that we've had 29 violations from CalGEM since 2020, and we've corrected that, and we've moved on from that. So this is just another example of just a mischaracterization or misunderstanding of information. This is not a notice of violation to E&B.
Okay. Richard, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I did. One of the ways that oil companies dodge violations is that they hire contractors. Now, E&B didn't hire Evoqua to come onto the drill site, but they did make the drill site available to Crimson Pipeline to do this work. And they didn't ensure that the equipment that was brought onto the drill site was legal and it would not endanger school children and residents living nearby. That's the issue. E&B doesn't get to dodge responsibility because the notice of violation went to a contractor. The fact of the matter is E&B is responsible for what happens on its lease.
Ed? Is Crimson hired by E&B? You're muted, Ted. I'm sorry.
Here I go. Crimson is not hired by E&B. They're not a vendor of E&B. They were hired by Crimson.
So they have a separate, I don't even know how to put it. So they're an independent contractor that deals with the transit of gas in the pipeline. And is that throughout the city or just in the Jefferson Park area?
Crimson is a very large pipeline operator in the state of California. They have pipelines all over. This is one of them.
Okay. I see the comment and that was written in the chat. We'll get to that in a minute. Are there any other comments or questions on this item? Seeing none. So there's also the claim, and Richard just referenced that again, is the AQMD determination about the 3 schools within 750 feet of the site and citations that may have happened in reference to that.
Yeah, so if Richard provides you with the documentation, you'll see that it was written to Evoqua. Same thing.
So it's the same, it's to Crimson.
Yes, well,
Okay.
it was written to, the notice of violation was written to Evoqua Water. I can't remember their name. It's like Evoqua Water Technologies or something like that.
Mhm.
They're the vendor that of Crimson. They were part of the necessary components to the inspection that Crimson had.
Okay. Citations related to workers being sprayed with oil? Ed?
I'm not sure what we're talking about here.
Richard brought up that there were citations of E&B about work site problem where workers were sprayed with oil.
I'd have to see the documentation. I'm not sure what he's referring to.
Ted, this is a reference to the Cal OSHA, the 4 notices of violation that were issued to E&B by Cal OSHA earlier this year, or late last year, I guess. And just to clarify, Steve, so there were a number of photos that residents shared with Cal OSHA. We shared photos of workers smoking on the drill site.
Yes,
Even
and you
near
presented them here.
Right. So there were a number of photos. Those photos were concerning to Cal OSHA, so much so that they took the unusual step of initiating an investigation. It's unusual because for Cal OSHA, normally their investigations are initiated by workers. They felt like the photographic evidence was so compelling and disturbing, they took action to open up an investigation. That investigation, E&B wasn't cited for workers being sprayed with oil because we have pictures of that happening, but inspectors have to see it firsthand. They cited E&B for other violations, for hazards where workers could get pulled into machinery, or places where wires were hanging and posed kind of an explosive threat or an ignition threat, but had not been repaired. So the violations, Ted could speak to the different violations that they were cited for and then fined, I believe, $12,130 for. And that was after a 50% reduction, my understanding is.
Ed?
Yeah, Steve, we would disagree with Richard's characterizations of Cal OSHA, but we'd be happy to put together a response and send it to the UNNC board.
Okay. The high pressure gas main installed for microturbines. I guess there are 2 issues here. One is, what is your standard practice at other sites regarding generation of electricity? And the issue of the installation of the high pressure gas main. And of course, gas burning equipment and pollution that's generated by that equipment. Go ahead, Ted. You're muted.
All right, I'll get this down sometime.
We all will.
Couple comments on microturbines. Number one, they're best available technology. If we talk to South Coast Air Quality Management District, they're in full support of the use of microturbines. The microturbines that are installed on the Murphy site are they're super low emissions. They're clean. They're pre-certified by the California Air Resources Board, which is super hard to get anything pre-certified by CARB. So they're the best available technology. Richard, what is it that?
So Ted, before you ask Richard, so
Yeah.
Is this the same technology you use at your other sites?
Not all sites are the same. Some don't need them.
And there's no alternative instrument that could be used to generate electricity?
Such as?
I don't know. I'm asking you. I'm not an expert in this area.
Yeah, I mean, in this particular area, this is what the company feels is the best available technology to be using. So we'd be happy to explore it.
Okay, Richard?
Just very quickly, you know, E&B has a utility connection to LADWP. They could power the drill site with an electric connection, much like all of us do at our homes. They choose not to, probably because it's cheaper for them to import and burn methane gas in the neighborhood, even though it creates a pollution impact on the surrounding community.
Thanks. So Ted, do you import methane to run the microturbines, or is that methane that's created on site that you then burn in the microturbines?
It's coming from, well, actually, let me get back to you on that one.
Okay.
I don't want to get,
I'll just say that was my understanding from a previous operator, probably 2 operators ago. It was my recollection that they claimed that they were using gas generated on site as a part of the drilling. Just so everyone knows, and Ted and Richard can correct me where I go off here. When you're drilling for oil, you essentially get 3 things. You get a lot of really ugly water, you get some gas, and maybe if you're lucky, you get some oil. And the water is pumped back into the ground. And it was my understanding that at least the previous operator was burning the gas in the microturbines that came out of the field. I could be wrong though.
no, those are that's pretty good. I mean, it's for some of our, you're right. I mean, the process is you're extracting down in the reservoir. What comes up is typically a lot of water, and in that water has oil and sediments and some gas. And so it goes through a separation process. You're cleaning out the oil, getting it ready for sale into the local marketplace. It gets picked up by a local refinery, and then gets broken into different products and consumed locally. And then the gas, the water gets cleaned up, and then it gets recycled back down into the reservoir from where it came from typically. And then the gas it depends how much gas you have. I mean, you can either sell to the local utility, or you can use it for on-site beneficial reuse, such as on-site power generation. Throw it in the microturbine. You can do both. Some of our sites we are able to sell to a local utility while utilizing a small percentage for on-site power generations to decrease the demand on the grid. We have a lot of, we all know that there's a lot of blackouts and a lot of demand on the grid. And so, being able to decrease that demand on the grid is a good thing.
Okay. So yeah, I think what you mentioned is what one of the previous operators said, is that some of the gas was sold to the Southern California Gas Company, and that was brought out through this pipeline that Crimson was operating, and some of the gas was burned in the microturbine. Richard?
Just very quickly, I think maybe what's happened here, I think Ted knows that E&B had SoCal Gas. They hired and paid SoCal Gas to install a new high pressure gas meter on the backside of the drill site last year. Part of that may be that the gas and oil that used to be extracted from the Jefferson drill site has always been piped over to the Murphy drill site for burning and processing and sale. And now that the Jefferson drill site has shut down and all the wells have been plugged, there's less produced gas coming to the Murphy drill site. It would appear that perhaps E&B is backfilling the gas that they used to get from the Jefferson drill site by now importing gas through this high pressure connection that they just installed with SoCal Gas. So Ted, you certainly would know the details more of that. You and I have talked about this over the last year, so I would think you'd have some knowledge of the new high pressure gas main going in and what E&B is doing with that gas.
So Richard, just to be clear, what would you prefer we do?
Our preference would be that you buy electricity from LADWP so that you do not create a pollution burden in the neighborhood. So right now you're burning millions of cubic feet of gas per year, and that's generating a pollution burden on the community. And that's showing up in the health research that it's impacting our children's their lung health, lung capacity, and that damage is permanent. So we want that to stop. We want you to use electric utility connection just like they do at the West LA drill sites.
Okay, let me report back to our team and let me give that some time.
Great. So you'll report back to us on that. I think there are a couple more items here. Acid maintenance. Ted, do you want to respond to Richard's concerns about acid maintenance?
Sure. So cleaning any well is a good best practice. It's required by law. I think what he's referring to is some of the cleaning of our injection wells. And Richard brings up, on this point, I see his perspective. It's an interesting thought about whether or not you do you or do you not need a letter of determination from the zoning administrator for this type of activity? I think it's a great question. And that's one that perhaps the board wants to take up and ask that. And, I don't see an issue with in the review process of asking them. We personally don't believe it's required. It's by LA City. I don't think that they had the intention of having to do a letter of determination on cleaning a well, which is something that they should want us to do for optimal performance and for good practice. But if the city thinks differently, we've been providing them with plenty of courtesy notifications about activities, including this one. And they have the right to opine on it and say, we believe you need to get file a plan application approval, or if they have some other process or something, or, that's up to the city.
Okay.
But we've definitely been transparent about what we've been doing.
So Ted, a previous operator agreed, and it was a local agreement. It wasn't part of the conditions of the zoning administrator, but a previous operator agreed that it would notify UNNC and CD10 when they were going to do cleaning, so that the neighborhood would know what was going on. And that was very nice, except that the operator only did it inconsistently. And so sometimes we were told and sometimes we weren't. Would E&B agree to notifying UNNC and CD10 when before you were going to do cleaning? You muted yourself. There you go.
Okay. Yeah, that's something that we would be happy to consider.
Okay.
Steve, I think we should
We need to wrap it up. Okay.
make a move to make a motion.
Okay.
And to take, not a motion, but take some kind of action. We
Yeah.
still have one more planning and zoning meeting
Yep.
before governing board. So yeah, let's look to wrap it up by.
Okay. So
Yeah,
there was
yeah,
there
Steve,
wa-
I'm jumping in too. So we will absolutely positively be taking our action at governing board on April 7th. But what we should wrap it up in a way tonight where perhaps to direct the chairs, and there's 4, right? Co-chairs of your committee, you and Chris and John and I, prepare based on
Yeah.
this conversation, prepare
Got
some sort of bullet points for April
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to try to wrap it up tonight because, as John noted, there's quite a number of people from the community who came
Yeah.
tonight, and we were all under the impression that tonight a determination would be made or a
Correct.
recommendation to the governing board. So if I could just have a few more minutes to run through some things and then get the
Sure.
motions, if that's okay. And
That's fine.
Okay, so Ted, there was a question in the chat. I don't know if you can answer this. What's the cost to upgrade the site to make it similar to West Side locations? And so I think that's referencing Richard's 3 points, which were to make the site consistent with sites on the West Side, and that was to enclose the site, to ensure that there are electric workover rigs rather than diesel, and not to burn gas. And we've spent a lot of time talking about not burning gas. I don't want to get into the details of that. But do you have an idea of, and I don't know if this is, anyway, the question is, what's the cost to upgrade the site similar to West Side locations?
What are the West Side locations that we're referencing?
Well, there's the one site that I know of that's enclosed. I think that's on Pico. That's the only site actually I know of that's enclosed, but in the city. And is that an E&B site?
The Pico Doheny site that's operated by PCEC?
So that's not your site?
No.
Okay.
That one is that one's not that one is not enclosed per se, but the rig is, right?
Right. So it looks like a faux office building, right?
Yeah, the rig. So the way they design that is, I think, I've actually never been on that site, but
okay.
So there's walls around the site, just, like similar to Murphy. I don't know. It might be.
I got it.
They might be higher.
Yes, they're a lot higher, but I think that, enclosing the site may have some benefits that the community should consider, but it also may have some downfalls. And a lot of the information that Richard has provided has been, and like the pictures he presented at a previous meeting, if the site was enclosed, we wouldn't be able to see it, right? And you wouldn't be able to see a lot of the operations. So I think there are a lot of pluses and minuses there. And then the second request that Richard put forward was electric workover rigs rather than diesel. Yeah.
You want me to make a comment on?
Yeah, is that a possibility?
Well, I think those are two things that we can work on with the UNNC and the Oil and Gas Subcommittee. We can look at technological and economic feasibility.
Okay, great. Thank you. So at this point, I want to ask if there are any other questions, and I'm going to outline the kind of motion process. I do want to make sure people have an opportunity to express any viewpoints or ask questions. So kind of like when you go to the auctioneer, going once, going twice. Okay, so as Laura pointed out, our charge is to look at the currently imposed conditions on the site and whether they're sufficient or not to ensure the drill site does not have negative impacts on the surrounding neighborhood, whether additional conditions should be imposed, and E&B's compliance. So I'd like to recommend that we divide up some motions here. The first motion I would recommend is about the 3 good neighbor provisions that Ted pointed out: the on-site annual inspections, the fence line air monitoring, and the supplemental emergency reporting. If we could vote on that, and whether UNNC board, we should recommend to the board to endorse those new conditions brought forward by E&B.
Okay, I'm going to start posting stuff in the chat. So the first thing that you're suggesting is that we have a motion regarding 3 good neighbor proposed conditions.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes. So
and are you asking for a motion to support or endorse?
I'm asking if there is a motion regarding that. If not, I will make the motion.
Right.
That we recommend.
I think you can make it.
that we recommend to the UNNC governing board that we support the 3 good neighbor provisions articulated by Mr. Cordova. Is there a second for that motion?
I can second that, Steve.
Okay, so there's been a motion and a second. Is there any comment?
Oh, somebody on Galaxy Tab S5E actually seconded the motion, which is probably more appropriate,
Great,
but I don't
thank
know
you.
who it is.
Well, as long as they're in this galaxy, I don't think it matters. So, and I
Okay.
think they are in this galaxy. So there's a motion and a second to recommend to the governing board that the governing board support the three provisions outlined by E and B: on-site inspections annually, on-site fence line air monitoring, and supplemental emergency reporting.
Okay, you're talking too fast.
Well,
Sorry.
you know, I can send them.
That's fine, I'm typing.
So I don't see, Louis Elfman, please unmute.
Yeah, a comment. So there were a couple points that were brought up that the E&B representative said he would get back to us on. And I'm just wondering what sort of accountability there is for that information to come back, and if we want that to influence the
I'm sorry,
recommendation.
can I just do, sorry, point of order. We haven't finished this motion, so we can't start talking about something else. And I am lost on the item number 3, Steve, as I said.
Okay, sorry, Louis. So we have on-site annual inspections.
Right.
These are all written, these have all been written out by
I know, but
E&B.
we keep our record here.
Fence line air monitoring.
Okay,
And the third one is supplemental emergency reporting.
okay.
Okay, Louis and sorry, could you repeat what you said?
Yeah, essentially, I was making the comment that maybe should we be considering that our supporting of bringing this to the actual appropriate committee should be contingent on getting back the information that has been said we should be getting. So the follow-ups on the questions that were raised. So that's a comment that I'm putting for consideration as a potential friendly amendment.
Okay, I will accept that amendment. We will get all this stuff to Ted. And as I understood, John, there's another meeting between now and the governing board meeting. And Ted, we've gone through all this stuff. If you could provide the responses, then that would be great. We'll discuss it at the next meeting. So whatever we approve tonight will be contingent upon, as part of the motion, will be contingent upon your provision of those responses.
Point of order, Daryl Schumacher, who is Galaxy Tab, needs to accept that extra provision.
Great. Daryl, do you accept that?
Yes, he does. He texted.
Okay, great. Any other discussion on the motion? Louis, do you have more to say, or would you like to put your hand down?
And is this amendment not finished? Amended to be contingent upon the receipt of E&B's response to questions posed tonight?
Yes, and then and discussion at the next Planning and Zoning Committee meeting.
Yeah, I accept that language.
Okay. Richard?
I just wanted to say that, you know, as stated, I'd have to oppose this motion. You know, E&B is welcome to do anything they want that's extra than what they're doing now, but I think this puts the cart before the horse. And
I'm gonna call a point of order, Richard. We have to, that the motion, we can vote on it or not. We're not, the motion's made, and unless Steve wants to retract, I think we have to proceed. We can't debate the motion with a negative motion. It's just,
John, was this a point of discussion though, or am I mistaken?
I think you're allowed to say this puts the cart before the horse, but I don't think anyone's allowed to speak for more than 30 seconds to a minute at this point, given the clock. So I think your comment is received.
Okay, so, and Richard, we're going to get to the other points and other motions. So
Right.
I just wanted to kind of break it up so that people didn't feel like they were voting on a large package of components of which they may or may not agree with. So we have the motion, it's written in the chat. I've asked for comment. So we'll now vote. To vote yes is to approve the motion.
And you want to I'll just repeat the motion, which is a motion to recommend to the governing board, and this will be contingent upon receipt of answers by E&B at the next P&Z meeting, but that we support or endorse on-site annual inspections, fence line, perimeter air monitoring, and supplemental emergency planning. And the exact language is also recorded in this meeting, so,
Great.
part of the Zoom.
Thank you. So we're ready to vote. Everyone please vote either by raising your hand through the camera or by using the reaction button.
I just want to remind people, we have an open voting rule. Whoever's in attendance who is a stakeholder, there's an asterisk on that, so please ensure, but before you vote, that you are a stakeholder in UNNC area. Otherwise, everyone can vote who's a stakeholder. Thank you.
Right, and I'm sorry, and the city has redefined, darn it, stakeholder. So someone who lives 20 miles away and is interested in oil would no longer, unfortunately, be defined as a stakeholder for this purpose.
So we do it on honor system, so please,
Right.
no, if you have any doubt, please don't vote.
So please either raise your hand visually so we can see it in the camera, or raise your hand using the reaction button. So I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I see 8 votes. Yes, is that right?
Yes, I'm seeing 8 yeses.
Okay, now I'm going to put my hand down. Please lower your hand. Donna, Daryl, and Marina, thank you. Those opposed, please raise your hand visually or through the reaction button. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Do I see
Okay.
9?
No, we see,
1,
Oh.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 8, 9. Lewis Chase, is that, I assume that your thumbs up is a, yep, so I see 10, I think.
10, no?
5, 6, 7.
well, I'm seeing 7 hands raised digitally and 2, what I'm seeing is 2 hands raised
No, so I
in
see,
real life,
I
in
see
real life.
using the
Yeah,
electronic hand, I see
7.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of
Right.
those, 8. And then I see 2 camera hands.
Yeah,
All
that's
right,
what I see.
so motion fails.
So
So let's be clear, motion fails to recommend that we accept the conditions that the operator is submitting to the zoning administrator, essentially.
that's correct.
Okay,
Allison, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, sorry, I just did not remove my hand. I will.
Okay. Okay, so another motion would be to ask the UNNC to support additional conditions, which would be to request that the zoning administrator require enclosure of the site, electric workover rigs instead of diesel, and to not burn gas on the site. I'm assuming that's through the micro turbines. Those are the 3 items I heard Richard outline. Is there a motion for that?
A point of clarification, is that in addition to the initial good neighbor provisions, or
It is
in exclusion
not.
of?
It is not. The good neighbor
is-
provisions were defeated.
Failed.
I would motion for that.
Okay, Richard made the motion.
okay. Is there a second?
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
I second the motion.
Okay, we have a second. I
Who
don't know
was that?
was.
Seconded by.
It was
who?
either Brittany or someone else. I did
It
hear.
was a
Brittany.
male
Oh,
voice, so
Louis
that
Chase.
one.
Louis
It's Louis
Chase. Louis
Thank you.
Chase. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no hands raised.
Oh,
Up, Laura?
right. What, weren't we also going to at least allow the operator to find out how much it would cost? Or is that not pertinent to this?
That's not part of the motion.
I understand.
Any other comments about the motion?
I'm sorry, I'm just gonna jump in and tell you the wind has so picked up that you might lose me rather quickly.
Yeah, it's gotten
On
pretty
our
windy.
electrical.
Just
Okay,
believe it.
we'll continue to try to count without you.
Yeah.
So seeing no hands raised for comment, we should call the vote. Those in favor?
I've got 9, 10. Richard, you only get one hand. 11.
8. You have 11.
No, now it went down to 10, so I don't know.
So
Hold
if
on.
you're
1, 2,
if
3,
you're
4, 5.
raising your hand visually, please keep it raised and electronically. So I have 8.
I'm
10.
back to 11.
I have
Okay.
12.
Yeah.
12,
I have
including
12.
Sylvia's 12.
I have 12.
Okay. Those opposed?
Well, everybody needs to take their hand down first.
Yes, sorry. Keep thinking I'm in a real room. Anyone opposed to the motion?
Are the rest of us abstaining?
Yeah.
Any abstentions?
I'll abstain from this.
I'm abstaining.
We have
I'm
2
abstaining
abstentions.
also.
Okay, motion
3.
has passed.
Okay.
So 12, yes. 3, at least 3 abstain. Motion passes. Okay.
Point of clarification. So if the good neighbor provisions were defeated, does that mean they can ever be reintroduced or not?
They can,
Pleasure of the
yeah,
board.
well, that's sort of my question as well. I mean, it feels like at the moment, the recommendation is that UNNC be silent on the conditions that the operator's actually making a part of the record, asking the zoning administrator to approve. And if we've just defeated that, we're not, I mean, that means we're opposed to those conditions. And well, that means we're recommending to the governing board that it be opposed to perimeter air monitoring and on-site inspections.
So
I'm not sure if that's truly the message, but
Yeah, I
that
don't
is what
agree.
you guys voted for.
No, I
Just
think
to-
we voted against the motion to support it. We didn't vote affirmatively in a motion to oppose it.
Okay, but hang on a second. We have some hands raised. If people want to comment, please raise your hand. Teresa?
Thank you. I think the motion failed. We need more information. Not we, because I did not vote on that, but I think what I heard was that more information is needed before that motion can be voted on knowledgeably.
Okay.
Louis?
Yeah, as the person who made the amendment to the motion that failed, it's unclear if the motion would have passed or failed without my amendment. And that's why I'm asking if the motion is presented again without my apparently poorly thought out amendment, is that something that could be advanced at the next meeting?
Well, I think I will just say, if it's the pleasure of the committee to go ahead and reconsider at the next meeting after we have received information, that's feasible. Any one person who voted, let's say, any one person who voted on the prevailing side, which in this case was defeat, can petition to have the motion reconsidered at the next meeting. Or we can reconsider it now without having to go through that rigmarole.
If we can reconsider it now, I don't know.
Well, we won't have the new information. So,
Yeah,
mean, in other
so
words, yeah,
I think the new information, if I could just summarize, may impact how people feel about whether EMB has been compliant with the currently imposed conditions. And that's a
Right.
reasonable discussion to have. But I think that's a separate item from whether
Correct.
the governing board should support the additional conditions that would not only be applicable on ENB, but all future operators of the site beyond ENB, should they leave, is a different issue.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, so
and I appreciated Lewis's attempt to want to get more information. I don't know if that would change people's minds or not, and maybe people who here can speak to whether they feel that would change their minds. I don't see them necessarily as related.
right. I'm just trying to figure out technically how we reconsider a motion. And I'm trying to see what.
Well, if the motion, if I may, if the motion is changed in a substantial way,
Correct.
I think you can reintroduce it. I think you can't duplicate it
Okay.
until it passes.
So then if that's the case, Lewis, would you be okay with a consideration of the motion without your amendment?
Absolutely. I mean, yes, I will
Okay.
withhold commentary. Yes.
I mean, to me, I'll make a comment, which is, to me, the conditions that are being proposed are things that this committee and our community has been asking for years. So I'm kind of surprised that we would vote against it. Lewis?
Yeah, I mean, since we're on comment, I will say I can think of no reason not to support this. It might not go far enough for certain opinions, including my own, but that's not a reason to say no just because it's not enough.
Okay. Well, okay.
So we have a new motion, Laura,
Yeah, what would the new motion be?
to support the good neighbor provisions, period.
And you're making that motion, Steve?
Yes.
Do we have a second?
Is there a second for the motion?
Oh, I can second. Just to get this done. I'm sorry, to support the good neighbor
Provisions that you already
Thank you.
wrote down, minus
No,
the
no,
friendly
I got
amendment.
this.
Okay, any discussion?
I call the vote.
Okay, so let's vote. Everyone in favor of the motion to endorse the operator's conditions on itself, please raise your hand.
I see 7.
7.
Yeah,
Okay, please
just-
put, I'm sorry, Laura.
No, I see the same thing,
Okay,
7.
please put your hands down. Carol and Marina. Thank you. Everyone who would like to oppose the motion, please raise your hand.
Two.
I see 2.
I see 2.
Uh,
Anyone
3,
abstaining?
4,
3,
4, 4,
5.
5. Okay. Any abstentions?
Please
Well, I
vote.
think it's-
Those who are voting no, please put your hands down.
Yeah, I think it's hard to do abstentions in a committee meeting, but go ahead. I mean, how do we count abstentions anyway in committee?
People vote to abstain? That you don't do
No,
that?
yeah, no, I understand. Are they yeses or nos? We don't know that.
What does Dunn say about abstentions?
They have 7 different choices and we haven't ever voted one for committees.
Okay, well, it
You don't
appears
even wanna
that's
go- Trust me,
okay.
I don't want to go
Wait a
there.
second. Wait a second, we use abstentions all the time at governing board.
We do. And
Okay.
in governing board, abstentions count as a no.
Then that's what they count at the committees too. That's what it counts. That's how it's, regulated.
Okay,
Okay.
so then I think we should call for abstentions then.
Yeah, but you
Anyone
need
who
to
w-
overtly abstain because there's some people who are not considering themselves stakeholders.
You have to vote,
Yeah, you have to state if you're abstaining.
right?
You can
Right.
You
not
have,
vote,
in
but
order to be considered an abstention, you have to vote to abstain. It has to be an active process. So anyone who would like to vote to abstain, please raise your hand either visually or electronically.
I would like to vote to abstain. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Any other abstentions? So from my count, the vote carries 7 yes, 5 no, and 1 abstention.
that's correct.
Is that correct?
That's
Yep.
correct.
Okay. Are there any
And
other?
Steve, also noting that when we get to board, we have to say it's really a split vote. I mean, this is a bare yes. So we need to explain that, but we'll develop a report.
Got it. Are there any other motions that anyone would like to have considered before we end this discussion?
I just have a question. Is the first motion that we passed asking to essentially not burn gas, does that imply that we're essentially recommending to the board that it recommend to the zoning administrator not to permit the micro turbines?
If the micro turbines burn gas, I think that's inclusive.
I think so too. I'm just asking.
I would
Yeah,
agree.
I don't think it's specific to micro turbines. It's not burning
Okay.
gas.
I would
All
agree.
right.
Lewis has his answer.
Louis?
Yeah, I swear I'll keep it brief. I'm just intensely curious for the people who voted no for the good neighbor motion. What are the points of contention? I just don't get it.
We don't, as a point of order, we don't ask why people vote.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay, sorry, that's
Talk
fair.
publicly about that.
Okay, so I haven't heard any other requests for motion, so I think we'll end the discussion on this. I think we had a robust discussion where points of view were aired, claims were made, and Ted, thank you for responding to everything tonight. We look forward to, well, we have this list of questions and hopefully you can provide us with some responses in advance of the next meeting, and we'll have an opportunity to discuss those anyway. That's regardless of that motion that didn't carry. We would like to hear E and B's responses. So I think with that, I'll end this part of the meeting. Thank you, everyone, for participating.
Thanks, and thanks, Steve, for moderating that. That was great.
So, John, you're back.
Hey, everybody. So we have 2 more items, 5 and 6. I am going to, I don't know if we have to vote on this. 6 is time sensitive, 5 is not. So I would like to say that we do number 6 first. And if we have time for number 5, we'll do number 5. If not, we can do 5 at the next meeting. So
John, is this a voting item?
I don't know.
I mean, we just made it as a notice. I mean, the reason I am it's possible action. If it's a voting item, I need to walk off.
Yeah, I would say, why don't you walk off anyway?
Okay.
Because we won't know.
I'm walking off, folks, because I live within 500 feet but we don't have a waiting room. I can't be recused into the waiting room, so I'm just walking away.
How if I, okay, do you want me to yell? Should I text you?
I'll text her.
Okay, thank you, Teresa. Okay, so we're gonna move to item number 6. Item number 6 is a discussion of a previous case that we've discussed over the years of UNNC. I gave a little synopsis in the agenda about the timeline on this, and why we're seeing it right now is to inform the community that this is going to be in front of the City Planning Commission, and that and going in front of the City Planning Commission, it will include our CIS that we wrote last August, and which was based on a letter we wrote to the Planning Department back in 2019, and it's basically It's the address is 1848 South Gramercy Place. This is a development proposal to demolish the existing structure built as a single-family home, currently used as supportive affordable housing for multiple tenants, and build a 7-story, 33-unit apartment building with 3 units of very low-income apartments. This is in the C1.5 zone, C1.5 1VL, which means one very low. And it is a TOC project, and it is looking in the basis of our opposition to this project was the number of what we call off-menu requests, which there's for TOC. You have on-menu requests, you have base requests, base incentives, which is parking and FAR, I'm sorry, parking and density. And then you get on-menu requests, which have variations on yards and FAR and things you can choose from. And then there's anything you want requests, which are called off-menu incentives, and you just have to ask. And I think there were 12 off-menu incentives, which we in our letter stated that this is a pretty rare request to ask for 12 off-menu incentives, which means going beyond what TOC says. So going beyond what the parameters of the basic TOC incentives are, which are pretty broad as they are. That's an editorial from on my part. But anyway, the incentives are there that are being requested. On the agenda says requested waivers of development standards include as increased height, increased FAR beyond what TOC allows, and waiver of transitional height requirement, which TOC doesn't allow as an incentive. It has a modification of it. Waiver of development permit for a 5-foot yard setback in lieu of 19 feet. Waiver of development standard to allow landscape buffer of 0 feet, which is part of one of the development standards, I believe, in the CPIO. They're requesting to use a commercial designation for mixed-use building, which allows them to do certain things. And then they're requesting to diminish the size of that commercial space, but still take the commercial incentives. So that's something off menu. And then decreasing open space beyond what TOC normally provides, which is a certain number of percentages. So they're asking for more than that. And the ground floor height of 10'5" and low 14. And just then it goes on. So there's a number of requests. We have written all these several times, City Council, and we are in opposition. We just want to notify the community that the notice is out. I asked the planner who's in charge of this, his name is Rafael Fuentes, he did not notify me when this came out. I found about it otherwise. He emailed me back and said, and I requested for the recommendations from staff to the City Planning Commission. He said he would get those to me yesterday. He did not. I requested them again. So I don't know. We don't know what staff is recommending. So I have not seen that. I've heard that staff was recommending approval on this, which is, it doesn't necessarily mean anything. City Planning Commission often votes on their own thoughts and merits. But so that's what we have. So if there's any discussion on this, we can discuss it. There's not really an action to take because we've already said our piece, but if anyone has anything to add to this, I've kept my opinions and experience out of this except when we wrote the letter. Hand up, Mr. Jia. Hope I pronounced your name right. Please unmute yourself with a comment. Mr. Ya or Ja?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. So thanks for giving a short description of the project. And I understand that you have opposed it in the past. And the last time when we talked about it, I requested that instead of opposing it outright, if you can give me a suggestion on how to make it a better building, how to reduce anything that I'm asking, that would have a longer and a better effect. Because as you know, the devil is in the detail. What it may seem to you is not actually the case. For example, let's take any example. I will give you an example of ground floor height. So they're asking me for 14 feet of ground floor height. And all we can give is 10 foot 5 inch. Why do you think that that is the case? If I give you 14 feet of ground floor height, the building will be even taller than what it is. That's the first thing. The second thing is, if I have 14 feet of ground floor height, then my ramp has to go 3 feet higher. That means I will lose at least 5 more car parking. So, and if you look at it objectively, you actually don't need a 14 feet of ceiling height in a normal building. It is not a building of a city hall. It hosts cars to space and a small commercial space. So that is why we are asking that this requirement of 14 feet height, it just doesn't make sense to accommodate in this kind of building. So if you pick any example, I can tell you that what is the reason why we do that. It's not that, oh, I'm going to do these things for no reason because I have a fun with it. We have gone through this design since 2018. So 4 years I have been given a runaround with the UNNC, with the city council, with historic nomination, with the planning department. There are several iterations of the design, and this is and that's where we are right now after 4 years of a struggle. So that is my point is, for example, if you are asking that the building is taller, okay, I could have asked for incentive of the parking, right? But I chose to give 2 layers of parking. Why? Because if there are 33 families living in the apartment, and I don't give the parking, guess where those people are going to park the car? Gramercy Place. Will that be a better idea, or will it be better to give the parking as much as I can? That is why we have 2 levels of parking, not 1. 2 levels of parking. I could have asked for reduction. So that is. So now, of course, if you give the parking, then the building has to meet certain requirements because there is a backup space. Backup space has to be 25 feet. Then you have to have 18 feet for the car parking space. So you have 50 feet of width. So you have to have a 0 feet setback. So it's not that I love the 0 feet setback, but that's the requirement of Department of Transportation if you want to park a car. If you don't park a car, then you park in the street. So the choices are very clear. So if you go into the design of it, actual details of it, then you will realize that, okay, this is a necessity, not a comforting because AJ thinks, oh, let's do that. And that is why we are doing it. So that's my point. If you have any question, I'm here to answer.
So I'm going to, Anne-Marie, I see your hand is up, and I'm going to respond to that as best I can. We have discussed this case so many times at this committee meeting. You have never sent a representative. You yourself, sir, have never been here. We have talked about the reasons. I mean, I do this as a living. I'm so familiar with TOC and density bonus and what off-menu requests are. And I see you're asking a lot of rhetorical questions, but a lot of what you're doing is self-inflicted. You want to get more and more and more. And every time you want to get more, you have to take another incentive. For example, the transitional height, we work with that all the time, and you want to get a waiver on it. And every time you ask for something, it creates another problem for yourself. So and I mean, I could argue with this for hours because we've talked about it for hours, and you've never been here, and you're asking for 12 off-menu incentives. We get anxious when we ask for 1 or 2 because of some nuance that's about the site itself. You have been self-inflicted to get more density and more height, and you've taken rules. you've used them to your advantage, and then you diminish the rules, the 14-foot height one being one of them. If you don't want to take the 14-foot height, don't take the commercial exception and take your lumps with that. But that's why the rules are there. You've basically, and we've said this in the letter, that you have aggressively taken every rule and spread the building out. And that is not the intent of TOC, the rules that are in place, the density of anything you're taking. That's not the intent, to give you everything that you could possibly take that diminishes a quality of life. We are genuinely for housing in this committee. We vote for housing, we vote for affordable housing. Excuse me, let me finish. And we are always looking for ways to help. But this is such, you've asked for 12 off-menu incentives. I can't tell you how unusual that is in this committee, in this, and the UNNC committee. And you've never been here. You're asking for our opinion now at the 11th hour. And we could have given you this opinion last year, the year before, and the year before. And instead you're asking us rhetorical questions now to give you, and were you going to change your design? I just find everything unacceptable that what you've said, and we've never, sir, given you the runaround, ever. We don't do that at this. We're a reasonable neighborhood council. This is a very reasonable planning and zoning committee, and we try to help. So with that, I'm sorry if that was long-winded. It probably took 3 or 4 minutes, but that's where I stand on, we've discussed everything you brought up before, and I'm summarizing it, but also putting in my expertise and knowledge of the subject. So that said, Anna Marie, I know your hand's been up, and please have the floor. You're on mute, Anna Marie. You're on mute. Let me see if I can help you. No, I can't unmute you. Nope, you're still on mute. Oh, there you go. There you go.
He's been here before, and so have I. When the history question first came up, all of the things he's asking for are granted by the state.
Not, go ahead. Excuse me.
They're just outright granted by the state.
That is incorrect, ma'am, but please state. Okay, that's incorrect.
I deal with a lot of these issues for other people, and that is correct.
The discretionary, all off-menu incentives are discretionary, and that's why we are allowed, and the CPC is allowed to use their discretion as a discretionary approval to approve them or not. And that is the crux of the CPC review. If they were granted by the state under SB 1818, under SB 35, under AB 2345 or 1763, I know them very well. They are not granted. You can ask for any off-menu incentive. You can ask an off-menu incentive to build a 15-story high-rise here if you wanted to. It doesn't mean that it's grantable. And we are opposed for the things that are being granted for all the reasons we stated. So I'm sorry to, you're incorrect. And if you want to rebut me, please do.
Well, here's the point. He managed to get all of these, no matter what. And now you're pissed.
Oh my God. Okay. Thank you for your comment. Teresa.
Thank you, John. You made some very salient points. I also want to state that, the UNNC is making every effort to increase our tree canopy, not only on our street trees, but private property. And when we have setbacks like these, there's no room for to increase our tree canopy to help improve the quality of life for our citizens. So I just want to thank you for your expertise, John, and I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Yeah, if these were granted, the applicant wouldn't be here. They have not been granted yet. This has taken this many years for it to come to CPC for its final vote. And we're just reiterating everything we have said. We are not now pissed. We have been saying our opinion for years, and it's now come down to this final CPC hearing where they will be voting on items that have not been granted yet.
And why was the owner not even notified of this meeting?
It's a public meeting. It was publicly posted as it is normal.
So you don't even give them the courtesy of a notice.
Steve,
Is there something that you're asking the committee to do, or is this a notification?
that we don't have to do anything. We just wanted to make sure that the community knew that this hearing was happening, and we just wanted to make sure it was known. And
Okay.
also, we don't know what the recommendation. I was hoping that I would have the recommendation in hand tonight, because if there was a recommendation that was unexpected, different, we could have responded to that in some way, but we don't have it.
A recommendation by the
Staff.
developer?
Staff. So
By
staff,
city
right?
staff?
Staff report, so the CPC has a staff report based on evidence, notices, letters, CISs, whatever,
But this committee has voted previously about,
twice, at least twice, it might even be 3 times now.
okay, great. Thank you. Just clarification.
Any other comments? Okay, seeing none. We are over time by 7 minutes. If someone could, I think we should, the other item we had was about how we notify communities. About a half a dozen times a year, we do have perhaps we were thinking about this committee have a way to notify community members more directly when items such as this tonight, when things happen at the discretion of the committee. But that would be a budget item. I think we should let it wait until next time.
So should I move to adjourn the meeting?
I think so. Any other any past cases? So let's move on.
I'm back.
Thank you. Any other follow-ups on previous cases?
Did we table my item? I'm hoping yes.
We did, yes.
That's fine. It's after 9 o'clock.
Yep. Okay, I move to adjourn. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve.
Hey, John, can you either try to kill the meeting or make me host again? Because I can't kill the meeting.
Okay, I will make you host.
Okay. Okay. And we still have people here, so I don't want to totally kill the meeting quite yet.